neighbors and local businesses while also building stronger relationships and a sense of community. And whereas living local helps to strengthen and preserve the fabric of Falls Church's unique business community while attracting new businesses to serve local residents and the community at large.
Now therefore, I, Letty Hardy, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2025 as Live Local Month in the City of Falls Church, and urge all residents to take the Live Local pledge, attend some of the many Live Local events offered by local businesses during the month, and participate in the Live Local campaign by tagging local businesses and events on social media. And it does look like we have members of the Chamber of Commerce in the audience. You're welcome to come speak, as well as receive the proclamation. Welcome.
Thank you very much. 20% is not that much, and we have an awful lot in Falls Church to be thankful for and to support. As I've been saying, we might be small, but we have it all. You can spend your money here on entertainment, professional services, and so many other things. So it starts at home. Please support the businesses. I appreciate this. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna come over here. The what? Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Step aside just a sec. Hold on. Hold on, let me get one. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least is a proclamation declaring November 1st, 2025 as Algerian American Heritage Day. And Ms. Connolly will do the honors.
Whereas the Falls Church area is home to a vibrant and growing Algerian American community, which contributes to the cultural richness and diversity of the City of Falls Church. And Algerian Americans enrich the community with their culture and traditions and are significant contributors to the workforce in the fields of education, medicine, finance, technology, and government. And the Algerian American Association of Greater Washington, AAAGW, established more than 3 decades ago and celebrating its 33rd anniversary this year, has worked to strengthen cultural understanding, build bridges between communities, empower women and youth, and promote civic awareness and education. And on November 1st, 2025, AAGW will host its annual cultural gala, highlighting Algerian music, art, literature, and traditions. And the City of Falls Church acknowledges and celebrates Algerian history, culture, and unity with Algerian American community members.
Now therefore, I, Letty Hardy, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, do hereby proclaim November 1st as Algerian American Heritage Day in the City of Falls Church and call this observance to the attention of the community. Thank you. It looks like you came prepared, so we'd welcome you to come up to accept the proclamation. And you're welcome to also speak and share a little bit more about.
Right into my stuff. All right, is it working? So long. Awesome. Thank you for having us tonight. So the Algerian American Association of Greater Washington is very thankful to the Chambers of Council and Mayor Hardy for allowing us to be here tonight and for receiving the proclamation. We are a nonprofit organization, 501(c), and we are here in the area of Falls Church, Fairfax, Maryland, DC. So we're big, we're growing. We have a big community that lives here in the area of Falls Church. We are celebrating our 33rd anniversary of this association that works to promote culture, education, youth, women, and preserve our heritage. We are very proud Algerian American living in America and in the City of Falls Church as well. Thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you. If you'd like to come on up to receive a proclamation, we'd love to have a photo with you. think I speak for all of us when I think it's wonderful that we celebrate the diversity in our community. So thank you all for being a part of Falls Church. Okay, moving on to oaths of office. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone in the audience taking their oaths tonight?
I don't, oh, I do. I do. I have to find your oath. There we go. Last but not least. Rachel? Do you, Alexander Maricola, solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Historical Commission, according to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you for your service, and we appreciate everything you do for the city.
Just one? Just one tonight?
I do have just one. I actually have Mr. Snyder and Ms. Shantz Hiscott serve on our West Falls Community Development Board. I don't know if you want to just do your oaths here while I have you in front of me.
Sure.
Do you want to, you can just stand up there and I'll do it. This is for Deborah Shantz Hiscott and David Snyder. They serve on our West Falls Community Development Authority Board. Just raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the West Falls Community Development Authority, according to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you both for your service on the CDA. Okay, let's move on to receipt of public comments. Can we start with a summary of written comments, please?
Where is it? Yes, and this is a summary of written comments we have received since your last regular meeting. Meredith Anderson wrote about pedestrian safety at Gundry and Annandale. Catherine Durr requested restriping of parking spaces at the community center. Jillian Economou of 1203 Lincoln Avenue wrote in support of a shared scooter program in the city. The Falls Church Climate Action Network provided their state legislative priorities. Paul Flush of 206 Southwest Street wrote with concerns about construction activities on Southwest Street. The Friends of Cherry Hill Foundation wrote to thank the city for investment in the preservation and maintenance of the Cherry Hill Farmhouse, including recent repairs. Carrie Gilpin of 701 Northwest Street wrote to ask for legislation to mitigate noise pollution from gas-powered leaf blowers. James L. Hamilton of 309 Grove Avenue wrote in opposition to financially supporting the Falls Church News Press with tax revenue and asked that surplus revenue be returned to taxpayers. Susan P. Hamilton of 309 Grove Avenue also wrote in opposition to financially supporting the news press with tax revenue. Jamie Eigelhart opposes development of the Triangle area near Shreve and Gordon Roads. Jenny Nowlin of 916 Lincoln Avenue supports taking a strategic look at developing the Gordon Triangle area and requested adding as much green space as possible to the area. Elsie Sanchez provided suggestions to encourage broader participation in the city government. Aaron Welsh, 314 West Columbia Street, wrote with concerns about problems created by shared scooter programs. John Wilson of 301 Buxton Road wrote to request a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. And the Planning Commission requested review of and public engagement on the cottage housing code to make sure it serves the intended purpose.
Thank you. How about public comment either virtually or in person tonight?
I don't have any signed up virtually, but I do have first John Ward and second Joseph Shirizzi. And we do have a 3-minute limit as usual, just reminding everybody.
didn't want to turn on.
Good evening, John Ward, 335 Riley Street. Thanks for your time this evening. The capital improvements program includes 2 items that provide for putting solar panels on 2 city buildings. One of them, the Aurora House, and the second one was the community center. The community center will be about 50% larger capacity than will be on the Aurora House. Earlier this year, you all allocated $104,000 in the current fiscal year budget for solar panels on Aurora House. Thank you again for that. That project should pay for itself over the life of the panels and provide a net positive return to the city over time. As staff, my understanding is, and I've heard from multiple folks, as staff has considered that project, it has turned out that the Aurora House may need substantial reinforcements on its roof, and that can be fairly expensive, and it might make the payback period on the Aurora House panels longer than you might want to invest in, and possibly longer than what we'd have on the community center. The community center might then become a more higher payback option. My request would be that you consider you're going to get a surplus budget amendment presentation from staff later this evening. I did not see in there anything related to additional funding either for the Aurora House or for what the staff has said is if they couldn't put if the Aurora House project didn't work out, they would, quote, pivot in their terms to looking at solar panels on the community center instead. The community center being a larger potential investment of about 50%, might take another $50,000 or $60,000 in addition to the $104,000 that you've already allocated. So my request for you would be, it would still pay off. It'd still have a payback after you got the 30% back from the U.S. Treasury, and then over time, lower operating costs, and it would be another net positive investment for the city. But I request that you consider on the current budget surplus carryover from FY25 that you look at what the staff would require if they wanted to, again, pivot to the community center in this coming fiscal year and put the panels there instead of on the Aurora House if that's not possible. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Joseph Shirizi.
Hello, again. My name is Joseph Shirizi. I live on Gundry Drive in Falls Church. I just wanted to make a few quick comments about the city's legislative priorities going into next year. I think the city should add everything that the ESC, the Environmental Sustainability Council, and Falls Church Climate Action Network has suggested to add to the legislative priorities. The people who put those together spend a lot of time, especially John Ward. Thank you for your so many years of service to the community, spending a lot of time going through what's happening at the state level and regionally. So please take their suggestions very seriously because they really do a lot of research, and I think they're underappreciated. So I'd also like to add that I think council should support the YIGB bill, which stands for Yes in God's Backyard, and is a state bill that will allow affordable housing to be built on churches without needing to go through zoning approval. And that's a state bill that failed last year, but might succeed this year. And I think the city should support that. The city should also support a bill to allow single staircase multifamily buildings to be built in the state, which would contribute to affordable housing and a diversity of housing stock and address missing middle problems that we have here in Falls Church and in the region. The city should, one of the main items included in the ESC's recommendations is adding support for the Virginia Clean Economy Act. We've been saying that for a few years, and it's a big one, so please make sure that that gets into the legislative priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it for tonight?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Hardy, members of council, members of the community. I'd like to report on 3 things tonight. First, on growing food insecurity in the region and the city of Falls Church. I want to speak about what the city is doing and how we're working regionally on that situation. Two, just provide a reminder that election is coming up next Tuesday and how the city will support a safe election. And then lastly, an update on the organics bin and how we're doing in terms of communication and survey feedback on the choices that our residents are making on the organics bin. So first, starting with food insecurity, we are in an unprecedented situation with a number of intersecting issues that have created essentially an emergency situation for food insecurity in the region. One, with the government shutdown, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, will end. There's not a plan for payments to be made in November. And so that's a kind of an immediate issue that we're all scrambling to try to address for families that rely on that food assistance. The Governor Youngkin has declared a state of emergency and has stated that the state will step in to provide that food assistance. The details of that or the mechanics of that are not yet clear to us, and we provide SNAP benefits to the city of residents through Fairfax County. In 2024, there were 240 households that received SNAP benefits through Fairfax County. We think that number is significantly higher if you sort of take the regional trends this year relative to last year. We don't have the latest figures on that. And so in addition to that, we also have federal workers who, many of whom last were paid due to the government shutdown in mid-October, depending on sort of the payrolls of your federal agency. And so federal employees are missing paychecks right now as we speak. And so that's putting a lot of stress on households. Our area food bank and other nonprofits are providing direct outreach to federal employees, and they have noted very high demand for that assistance. So this is a kind of a rapidly developing situation. The mayors and chairs are going to meet this week to compare notes on what localities are doing to assist our food banks and our food distribution, and also to get more information about the mechanics of how the governor's state of emergency might play out. So more to come on that. Our schools, our partners with the schools, are very active in this space. They have programs for food assistance for students, and that program has also seen, even prior to this month, a steady increase in demand for free and reduced lunch support and for other food assistance that's provided through the schools. So the schools have been sort of a key partner in the community to help families with food insecurity. I don't know if Councilmember Connolly wants to share kind of some of the things that the schools are doing, but we're trying to coordinate actions at that level. So that's a kind of a quick high-level summary of work that we're doing with regional partners and with nonprofit partners, and ultimately the Commonwealth of Virginia to try to help address this situation. I will maybe stop there to see if there are any questions on that topic before moving to the election.
Questions or comments from Mr. Shields? I mean, obviously, it's very troubling, and so it's good that we're all going to put our heads together, figure out regionally how we're going to respond. It's also probably prudent to prepare for WIC, so Women, Infants, and Children program, is also going to run out in mid-month. So that's additional population. So to the extent that we can kind of quantify how many people are going to be impacted by that, it might be worth preparing for the full population. I'm glad the schools are very active, but obviously that's just a subset of our total needs. Oh, okay. Thank you. So thank you to staff for working on that. Ms. Lynn?
I guess I would make one quick comment on this, which is that from the information that we've also received, it looks as though, some of the local area food banks, may at some point in time need more municipal assistance. And so as we think about the budget amendment, in my view, it may be prudent for us to think about, a contribution in light of how this is going to come together over the next week or so, and whether we're going to have more kind of logistical or better sense of how this is going to be implemented in a way in terms of the state emergency for a way for people to actually be able to access food. So something to keep in mind for later this evening.
Yeah,
Thanks.
over the weekend, I had asked if we had a rough kind of estimate of how much they're looking for so we could consider it in our budget amendment, given the timing. Do we have any information from?
So we got a letter from the food pantry, I think at like 6 tonight, so we're sort of reading that. But Dana Jones will be in this meeting, joining virtually when we discuss the budget, and she can provide an update at that time.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Connolly.
So in partnership with Dana's office, Housing and Human Services, the schools have pulled together a group of local churches and nonprofits to see what we can do to really make sure that our safety net doesn't have holes in it. Because there are a lot of churches in the community that are doing things on different days, different weeks, different populations. So we're really trying to pull together and see how we can work together. And we had a really positive meeting with some of the pastors a couple weeks ago, and they are very committed to wanting to help the community. So we can also rely on them as a really good source of support.
Yes, Mr. Snyder.
There is an upcoming opportunity to write directly to Columbia Baptist Church as a fundraiser for their food banks coming up at the beginning of November. So that's a great opportunity for all of us to participate directly in what one of our churches is doing.
Thank you. Okay, we'll stay tuned.
That's right. So moving then to the election coming up. So we're in the midst of early voting right now, and the registrar informed me this morning, I think we're at about 29% of our registered voters have so far voted. Early voting runs through 5 p.m. on Saturday, so the registrar's office will be open from 9 to 5 on Saturday. That'll be the last opportunity for early voting, and then Election Day is on Tuesday. And of course, all of our precincts will be open for in-person voting then. We did put out a special announcement today at the behest of the registrar. There are 3 voters who put their ballots in the mail, and the U.S. Postal Service returned those ballots, returned to sender. We don't know why they did that. The address was correct. The barcode was correct. The bottom line is, obviously, we're going to count all votes, and the registrar is encouraging people to use the ballot box right here at City Hall if you're not here during normal business hours, and drop it off there as an alternative, possibly to putting it into the post office. We want to make sure that every ballot gets counted. So there's information about that on the city website that we put out as a special announcement today. The organics bin rollout. I want to thank everybody who has so far participated in the survey response, and thank all of our team and our Office of Communications for helping get the word out. To date, we've received just under 1,500 responses, and so we were targeting 50% at least. We want to exceed that of our 3,100 customers. So far, the data is 32% of the respondents are choosing the 65-gallon organics bin, 39% are choosing the 35-gallon organics bin, and 28% are choosing to opt out of the organics program. Townhouse owners and residents, we know we wanted to have special outreach with our townhouse community because of space constraints. We've done extra outreach there, including 2 in-person events last week, and 370 of the responses received so far are from members of our townhouse communities. So I thought I'd just share that information. We are closing the survey on Halloween, on Friday, October 31st. So please do take time to fill out that survey if you haven't done so far. And I said there are 3 things. I'll just add one more. You will start to see city operations staff out on the street with leaf pickup And so please be safe when you're operating around them. They're working very hard to get the leaves up. And every time we talk about leaves, we'll also give a plug for leaving the leaves and composting them on site. It's a great option for residents in the city when it's possible. And so that will be part of our ongoing communications throughout leaf season. Be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you. I would say the latest OCOM video about leaving the leaves is hilarious.
Pretty spectacular.
Yes, so well done.
I wasn't sure that had been released. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay. I'm going to start down there. Ms. Downs?
Yes, our own Ms. Teo was in it. And
Yes, that's right.
you may not have recognized her because she was sort of zombie-ish looking, but it was actually, I said that, I don't remember city videos getting that many likes before. It's really, and I
It's
think it was
gone
forwarded
viral.
35 times. It was excellent. So to everyone who was involved in that video, kudos. A couple things. Speaking of leaves, we had two letters come in about the gas-powered leaf blowers. Is that something that we'll put on the as a topic of discussion at some point?
I think it's been on our ledge agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking to the ledge committee. Last I recall, we don't have authority to outright ban them. We had asked the city attorney whether we could follow the city of Alexandria, who's using their noise ordinance to regulate gas-powered leaf blowers.
That's right. We don't have the authority to outright ban gas leaf blowers. The city of Alexandria has undertaken a decibel limitation that's measured with decibel measuring devices by the police. And I believe that's how they're enforcing that decibel limitation. They would be able to apply that decibel limitation in a uniform way to any sound without distinguishing necessarily where that sound is coming from. So it couldn't be attributed just to leaf blowers. It would have to be the same for any sound that's exceeding that decibel threshold, no matter the source. And so there are some not complications, but there are some details that would need to be worked through. I do notice that our charter currently does have similar prohibitions on decibels and those sounds reaching neighboring properties, and has provided some limits for daytime and nighttime decibel readings. So it would be partly an exercise of our operations team to decide if that's something that we can enforce. I noticed that currently the penalties appear to be criminal, and it would most likely be, I think, more enforceable to convert to a civil penalty system. So we would need to talk through that as well.
And I think there are details in Alexandria, like a phase-in period and other nuances. But I think good news is we are seeing our Alexandria counterparts Wednesday at our regional dinner. So we probably discuss with them how it's going. And then I would suggest maybe a January discussion with the new council of whether we want to take this up based on how implementation is going in Alexandria.
And I'd like to correct myself because I actually am not sure if their statute is criminal or civil. There is, but ours provides for criminal penalties. So I don't want to put words in Alexandria's mouth without relooking at their ordinance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gillette. And Mr. Ward was here and gave comment earlier this evening about Aurora House versus community center and solar panels. What would be the next step, Mr. Shields, in talking about that if we need to flex or pivot from Aurora House because of the added, and obviously community center would be more of a cost burden because of the size. So then would that be something that we would talk about in a work session, or? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I didn't know, because I know we had talked about Aurora House needing that extra reinforcement for the roof. So we just haven't, I just was wondering where we were with all that.
I think we'll have to get back with council on that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. And then my final piece is that I'm sure all of my colleagues up here agree with me that I am getting very tired of hearing about Gundry and Annandale. We had another letter today or whenever this week, I guess, from Meredith Anderson about this. And, I do agree. In reading her letter, she made a comment about, I think often it's talked about that street as a snow route. But, frankly, we don't get a whole lot of snow. And to me, it doesn't kind of make sense to me that we would hold off some safety mechanisms, some safety tools for a snowfall that we might get once every other year, when every single day those kids are put at risk because of people running the stop signs and speeding. So I didn't, if we could even look at, I know we had talked about sort of more of like a temporary speed humps that could be pulled out maybe if it was snowing. I think they're like rubber. I saw them, they used to be on East Jefferson before East Jefferson got permanent speed bumps. But I would really, I am beginning to get frustrated as the residents are then. So I'm hoping that we could move faster with something that's more significant for that area. Thanks.
This one.
Yeah, I'll echo Laura's comments on Gundry and Annandale. It's important because it's a bus stop, but it's also important all of us, have had that commitment to getting things implemented. And I know that staff has now come up with a plan. And so wanting to just ensure that, it's the best possible solution, taking into consideration, some of those countervailing kind of arguments of a snow route, but like how much should they be given weight in light of the daily sort of occurrences that are happening there. So making sure that we are finding that right balance and that the balance is coming out in favor of sort of the regular pedestrian safety and whatever other sort of considerations we need to make, that we're kind of doing that in a responsible way as necessary. The comment I was going to make, I know that the survey on the organic bin ends on Friday. I think it's been really helpful to see the physical bins, the yellow bins that have arrived. I don't know if you've given consideration to having them out at the farmers market, especially, or, having them outside on the plaza, given that, Saturday is an early voting day and there will be more residents possibly coming in and out of the building. So I'm not making a strong ask to put your survey deadline over till Saturday, but if you're not going to look at the results until Monday, it might make sense to delay a day if you can get the bins actually outside where people are going to see them, and then have the tag or the QR code to the survey there. So just something to consider to continue to increase those response rates. Thanks.
Mrs. Scott.
I'll just plus one both of those comments. And then I think a quick one is the question about striping in the community center. Post geothermal implementation, one of the public comments we got today was asking when that's going to happen. So I don't know if that's a quick response or something we need to get back to them on.
I don't know when we're planning to stripe the City Hall parking lots. I think we have generally, as you can tell sometimes from the condition of the parking lot, particularly in the back, we tried to focus on getting things out on the street as opposed to here at City Hall, but I'll get back on a date on that.
Thank you.
I guess to add on to that, I actually had striping the Park Avenue lot where the shared parking is. I think we had last done that probably over 5 years ago. For that public parking is kind of important to those downtown businesses. So if we are going to tackle the community center and the City Hall lots, maybe we should tackle the 100 block of Park Avenue as well. And then my question on Annandale and Gundry, because I had that on my list as well, is the complaints have been stop sign running. So how does the narrowing of the lane, plus I think there's some curb extensions and maybe some stop ahead signage that's going to get added, do we think that will be enough? I guess, because ultimately speed bumps, which is I think what the neighbor is asking for, is really a speed deterrent. Are we finding that speed is an issue, or is it really the stop sign running? Because I don't think the neighbor doesn't feel like we're being responsive. And so if we can get more of a technical explanation how the recommendations actually address the concern, or how the recommendations of the neighborhood don't address their concern, that might actually help the conversation advance. My third request is USPS. So I know we've had issues with the lobby being closed after hours. I think, again, the signs are no longer there, but the doors are locked. So now we have a different issue. Now there's no explanation why the doors are locked. So I know this has been an ongoing challenge, but I've gotten a few complaints about that. So thank you in advance for following up. This way, Mr. Snyder.
So I wanted to follow up with the mayor's comments on Gundry and Annandale Road. My understanding is that that's like the first project under the new significantly modified approach. So I'll be interested to know how this relates to the request on the snow emergency route issues. Second issue on sound is that I've heard from people living in our mixed-use buildings along Broad Street that they're awakened by these loud noise, motorcycles and cars, and I'm wondering if we're going to open up the sound ordinance, if there's any opportunity for the city to take any kind of enforcement action to deal with that issue as well.
Thank you for that question. I think that is a separate code issue about loud tailpipes, and the police do write citations for that now. So I'll ask Chief Fard if kind of what they're experiencing late at night. But I know that sometimes people say, you know, at every night at 11:30, someone's racing down the street, and that has actually allowed us to sort of target some enforcement that's been effective.
Great. Well, a little more communication with the public and learning a little bit more about the police department's efforts might be helpful. Thank you.
Any down there? Senator Hill?
Just quickly, it's funny, so I received the communication on the organic spin, but my reading of it was that if you didn't want any changes to the bin size, that you didn't need to fill out the form, so therefore I didn't even bother to fill out the form. So it's possible that people not filling out the form doesn't mean that they're not partaking in I guess, city activities. It's just simply that they wanted whatever the bin size that they were going to get delivered. So it's not necessarily a negative that we didn't get a response from everybody, because I would usually be the first person to fill these things out, but it didn't seem necessary. I wanted to echo comments on Annandale and Gundry. Specifically, I know that we had undertaken a re-examination of what we were classifying as snow routes versus not. And I think that was happening this past January. I'm not sure what the results of that were or if that actually ended up happening, but I would be curious to know what the results were, or if it would make sense to undergo a review with our new DPW director to see if routes that we have make sense as snow routes, because I know that some of these routes, like Lincoln, end in Alexandria, end in Arlington, and Arlington does not have them classified as a snow route. So we're basically having snow emergency routes to nowhere, or places that don't maintain them as snow emergency on their end. So I guess my question is, and this is following up on the email, does it make sense to have Annandale be a snow emergency route when Broad Street is right there, and Washington Street is right there, and those are also snow emergency routes and would get people to where they need to go, and we have far more kids and pedestrian traffic crossing at key points on Annandale. So I would just like to get an answer to that. And yeah, my understanding is the residents want either speed humps, speed bumps, or raised crosswalks, I think would be the gold standard there. And that would just simply, at least my sense is that people are plowing through there, not even noticing that there's a stop sign. And so any sort of something to wake them up, whether we paint the crosswalk or have a raised crosswalk or something, but just to have people be a little bit more alert rather than in a sort of hypnosis state driving down there. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Given that we all had comments about Annandale and Gundry, I know the ball's in motion given our discussion last week on the next steps for that, but does staff have an interim response?
I don't know if Andy wants to speak to it.
So the team's lining up a plan to repave Gundry next week, and then the striping plan that was shared with you all 1 week ago tonight would go in the following week. So I mean, I think we can take the the feedback for additional things beyond kind of the plan that was shared with y'all last week. I think my ask would be, we'd like to kind of follow through with the changes we've identified. I think those changes will slow down, are intended to, and will slow down the traffic on the street. And let's see the effect of those. I don't think it closes the discussion on doing yet more things, but I think the team's come up with a pretty good plan that we'd like to follow through on. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Ms. Downs?
Thank you so much, Mr. Young. I don't want us to wait. We often say, what does it have to take, like someone getting hit to really? So I guess I would just say we would definitely give it, let's give it a shot. But I wouldn't want to wait too long, if we feel like it's still not enough, that we can move. And again, maybe it's just doing those, I don't know, whatever those things are called, but more of the rubber speed bumps that can be kind of done really quickly or something like that and pulled out if needed. I'm looking at Justine, she's my, but again, I think that's great, Mr. Young, all that your staff is working. I would just caution us to, just keep it on the front burner and just, if it's not all that we need, then we have to just keep pushing forward for some more. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the concern is that Annandale and Gundry had its first traffic calming project done 4 or 5 years ago. And we just don't want to wait 4 or 5 years after this round before we can address it again. So if we do find that it is effective, great. If it's not effective, we'd like to follow it quickly again with what else can be done given the feedback we've gotten. It should not take 4 years again. Okay, sorry.
Mr. Shields, there was some back and forth with a resident of West Street, Southwest Street, about parking spilling over from Madeira Founders Row. And I know you had replied to that person and said you would talk to them. Has there been any resolution
So we did talk yesterday afternoon, and so just a quick background on this. When Madeira Falls Church was coming out of the ground, there was a petition for parking regulations. What the city code calls for is to allow 2-hour parking and have a zone parking regime that really is intended to keep apartment owners or apartment tenants from storing cars out on the street. I think there wasn't consensus on that solution, but that is the preferred solution by city code. And so that's what we discussed. And I think there is interest in sort of revisiting that issue, and I think there might be support for that approach. So I'm going to follow up with our staff to see if we want to see if we can re-engage with the community on that approach.
So just as there are no parking restrictions around Madeira Founders Row at this point?
That's
even
correct.
Though there had been a discussion about it, but okay.
Yeah.
So the concern is that some of the residents are parking in the neighborhood to avoid the parking fees.
Yeah.
And then some of the retail customers are also parking in the neighborhood, blocking driveways.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. And so one of the suggestions was to break it into just the Southwest Street neighborhood, and so have it not be part of the larger Ellison Street and other network of residential streets. And so I'll discuss that option with staff as well.
Okay.
Is the back of Ellison meant to be no parking, or?
Not for, there still are the no parking signs that are left over from the construction phase, and I think that is going to change. Ultimately, there will be parking allowed on Ellison Street.
Okay. I guess why wouldn't the back of Ellison be the same as Southwest? I mean, distance-wise, Ellison's even closer than Southwest.
I guess when I said that, I'm really kind of thinking a little bit further afield, kind of going up Ellison further from the project. I think that's where there might have been some differences of opinion.
I guess I'd want to start from a place of policy. So if we think, if you are adjacent to some commercial areas, is it X number of feet, some sort of diameter from where that commercial area is 2-hour parking only, and so that we can apply it uniformly, and we don't pick and choose winners and losers in streets. So if it's some sort of diameter kind of metric.
I think our approach would be, if there's resident support for parking regulations, we'll do the petition process, and if there's support for it, we'll do it. It's just that 2-hour standard sometimes is the rub, and some of the residents want a blanket resident-only parking without the 2-hour exception, whereas the city policy is to allow for the 2-hour exception. And so there are some grandfathered streets where there is the blanket residential parking only, and we have had a tendency to honor some of those legacy situations, but as we do new regulations, staff will follow city code unless ultimately we change the city code if there's a desire for the city council to take that up. But that's how we're trying to be consistent.
Ms. Flynn?
Yeah, I guess following up on this, I mean, I remember these conversations from the spring, and I guess then they were kind of put over to when the retail and the, apartments would be further occupied. And I understand to some extent sort of waiting to implement the default if the concern was like, oh, we're putting up all this signage and then, we may be revisiting the signage. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like if we have a default policy, it seems like to me that we should be starting with our default policy of like 2 hours as opposed to like having 0 restrictions right now. And then the conversation would be, this is the default policy. Is it working or is it not working? And if it's not working, then what do we move to instead of the default? But I guess I was just surprised to hear that there's like nothing happening there pending a further conversation.
So, yeah, I would suggest that the default is no regulations on the street. That's the default condition. A petition would trigger a regulation for zone parking with that 2-hour exception.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I sent in to the council questions was about the neighborhood of Poplar, Gibson, Robinson, Tracy, Rosemary. I had a resident there request that there be extra leaf pickup because the streets are so slanted, there's such a steep hill, there's so many trees, it's particularly dangerous. The response in here is that the leaf schedule has been published. I looked at it and it doesn't look like there's anything extra over in that neighborhood. I'm wondering if there's anything that can be done there.
We'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final council requests? Okay. I guess to try to wrap up the conversation on Southwest and Ellison, I guess pending, what the neighborhood engagement is, I guess I'm pretty uncomfortable saying we're just going to have no public parking on the streets. Because at the end of the day, when you're near a commercial area, I think the city policy of 2-hour public parking seems reasonable, and maybe no overnight parking is a concern to prevent, residents from skipping out on the parking fee. But I think when you are a block from Broad Street, like having some commercial parking is also important. It also slows down traffic. And so I guess I would want more thorough discussions on the implications of allowing no public parking on that street, because what that might mean for other parts of the city as well.
If I implied that was what we're going to do, that's not what I meant to do. Okay. The 2-hour standard is what we're trying to do consistently across the city.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to business on the agenda. Madam Clerk, can you call the first item, please?
Yes, on first reading, we have TO 25-17, ordinance to amend the city code of the City of Falls Church, including but not limited to Chapter 2 Administration, Chapter 6 Buildings, Chapter 5 Fees, Chapter 38 Subdivision, and Chapter 48 Zoning to reflect July 1, 2025 Virginia code changes, removing site plan approval authority from the Planning Commission and assigning it to the designated agent, and to amend the maximum review time of 1 site plan, subdivision plat, and plan of development applications solely involving parcels of commercial or residential real estate, and 2 resubmitted plat, site plan, and plan of development applications.
And our lead planner on this case is Henry Zhang, and he'll provide the staff report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shiu. Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, Madam Mayor, and the members of the City Council. My name is Henry Zhang from Planning Department. On July 14, the City Council adopted an initiating resolution 2025-18 on the City Code amendment. On September 15, the City Council had a work session on this project. During the work session, the project team briefed the council on all the proposed code changes. All those languages proposed in the new ordinance. Since the work session, only limited changes have been made on the staff report as shaded in gray in front of you. Major changes are on lines 11 to 16. Sorry, on line 11, there's typo for that. It should be 15, not 27. The two main changes are on page 2 of the report. Change number 1, additional analysis of the number of the site plan and site plan amendment application received over the past 19 years has been included. Change number 2, the previously proposed amendments in the draft code for section 48.970 has been removed because of the redundancy. With those limited changes, staff recommend the City Council adopt the proposed resolution, the proposed motion. This concludes the staff presentation. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Do you have questions on the staff report? Thank you for providing that additional data about, we've had 128 site plans in about 20 years, about 6 to 7 per year, which I think was one of the questions that was raised.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Downs?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know we discussed this at length on a couple of occasions. Regarding the Planning Commission's advisory role, reading that they will, the Planning Commission in that advisory role will make a recommendation to the designated agent. Is there a way for the council to be, so I'm just trying to figure out, so the Planning Commission submits, is this like in writing that they would submit a letter to the designated agent? Is there a way that the City Council could be copied on that, just so for transparency, these are, public, this is our citizen input. It would be helpful to know what they're recommending to the designated agent. Would that be possible?
Yes, everything involved with the review of the application are open to the public. Basically, we envision a very quick turnaround. Maybe during the day after the Planning Commission's advisory hearing, the planning staff will be putting together a very brief summary of the issue discussed and the recommendation they proposed. And then I believe that written material will be available for the council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think, just now that the process is changing, I just don't want us to miss that piece of it. And so as long as it's available to us in some way or another, that would be great. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Snyder?
Sure. Let me get down to the fundamental question. If we don't approve this tonight, what's the impact of that?
We are on a very tight agenda. I mean, because the state code effective July 1st, well, way late, 3 months later. And then now we have a case will be submitted. We are in the middle of talking with the applicant about another site plan for townhomes across the streets of Lee Park. And we need this in place in order to review that application.
Let me phrase it differently. Phil Duncan will express deep concerns about the legislation that's driving this, as well as the impact on the Planning Commission and public's engagement and involvement in critical decisions affecting the public. and I adopt exactly his language word for word, that may come as a shock to those who have followed us over the years, that Phil Duncan and I are absolutely on the same page. But we definitely are on this one. My question went to the fundamental issue here. This legislation is special interest legislation. It removes the ability of local governments to control developments within their borders, reduces public engagement, reduces the amount of time, and otherwise is a tightly drafted special interest bill. But we are where we are, and I'm just trying to establish if there is an option to not go along with this at this point, what I'm hearing you say. What if we don't? So let's look at it from the city standpoint. So what's the impact if we don't go along with this?
I will defer that question to city attorney.
Well, I think if we didn't adhere to the procedural rules set forth by state code, our site plan approvals, and we continued to do it under the old process, the site plan approvals could be challenged as being invalid. That the plan itself is not approved.
So it affects developers, but how does it affect the city? Does it mean, what I'm trying to ask is that if we don't go along with this and create a designated agent, will the state do it for us? Or is there an implied designated agent, or do we lose the right to approve site plans and approve other things in general? I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think the outcome would be a mandamus from the court to institute the rules that they've set forth under state code and mandate that we designate an agent, mandate that we approve site plans in the timeframe set forth under law.
That's where I'm going. There really isn't a choice for us acting on this tonight, and indeed setting up the vote before the end of the year, which is, I think, is the timing the way you have it. And I think the city attorney laid that out. So really voting no is not an option, particularly under this legislation. I will say that it's my intention as legislative chair to reach out to our House of Delegates member and our state senator to ask if there's any interest in helping us amend the legislation going forward to provide more to allow us to have more public input and more time to take actions. And I'll ask city staff if they can reach out to smaller communities around the state to see if there might be support for that. But that would be, I mean, I could add it as the action to approve this if the desire is there, but my intent would be to pursue that. But in the meantime, I just want to establish that as a matter of law, the reality is we really have no choice. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Mayor, the language is written right now. That means if you're not act within the time frame established, the site plan will deem approved. So that means on the city part, that's a risk because if we're not act within the time frame, the applicant just, go and start the construction based on that site plan.
Right, that's another downside of
Right.
refusing to establish a designated agent. Thank you.
To answer your question, sir, we have been involved in the Virginia chapter. There is a legislative work group. Basically, on a weekly basis, they have some discussion, and everybody believes next year this will be changed. But nobody knows change to what. Still in discussion. There are a lot of complaints, a lot of localities like us try to put together something in order to get over to next year. This is where we stand.
So maybe one of the objectives for city staff will be to work with the other jurisdictions to try to gel a common consensus on the best approach to amending this going forward. Okay, thank you. And I would certainly support that effort.
If I could add, I think we've had lots of discussion about after implementing this, let's monitor how it goes, right? So I think based on the timelines of the site plan approvals that we've had to date, we think it's achievable, especially given the volume is 6 to 7 per year. And I don't even know if we're going to see 6 to 7 per year given the real estate market to come this year, correct?
Right.
And so I think without having actual evidence of like, hey, we did our best and we're only hitting these timelines, I think it'd be a pretty empty argument to our General Assembly representatives say this doesn't work for us. I know change is hard, so I think obviously we have to see how it goes. And then I think if we do find it challenging for us in other localities, we can certainly address it then. But I think without that actual experience, it just seems like we're being resistant to change.
Madam Mayor, I would just add that the legislation that we're dealing with is not just about changing the times. Yes, it does that, but it dramatically reduces the ability of localities to control what's going on within those localities. Thank you.
I had a question about resubmission fees. So I believe that that was changed in the staff report.
Yes. I mean, in an ideal situation, we need to change the fees of the cities, the entire Chapter 15.
Yeah, we talked about
altogether.
rebenchmarking all
Yeah.
of our fees.
Actually, in the beginning of this year, the staff already prepared a comprehensive changes to the fee schedules. We have the schedule ready, but I think in the interest of this, new legislation from the states, we try to limit the changes as narrow as possible. That's why we propose in the report, you will see on page 6, we propose like half of the price of the 3850 because according to the current review steps, the first time is 40 days, and then if we get a disapproved, we have to have a very limited list of issues. The second submission will be, to resolve them. So given that situation, we believe the scope of the review is significantly reduced. So for that purpose, because of that consideration, we propose half of the fee from the first submission.
Yeah, so I think I understand the logic behind it. My question is, have we benchmarked that fee to other jurisdictions?
Well, we are significantly lower. Overall.
Even at half, at $1,900, that's...
Yeah, significantly lower than the adjoining jurisdictions like Fairfax and Arlington. Both of them recently hiked their fees very high.
Got it. Okay. Well, as long as we've done that homework, then that was my main question is,
Yes, we did.
obviously we want people to put their best foot forward, especially because, again, site plans, even when they were done by the planning commissions, were meant to be ministerial. And so the discretion that we seem to have applied to it was probably not legal. So given that this change, even if it does remove the planning commission and puts the planning director in as a designated agent, I think it just follows what the original state code intent of site plans were anyway. Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
I move to grant first reading to TO 25-17, refer to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation, schedule second reading and public hearing for December 8th, 2025, and advertise the same according to law.
Is there a second? Second. Ms. Downs on the second. Can you call roll, please?
Ms. Conley? Ms.
Yes.
Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes?
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz-Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yeah.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Let's call the next item, please.
Yes, next we have TR 25-31, resolution to initiate amendments to the Code of the City of Falls Church, Chapter 48, zoning, Article 1 in general, amending the half-story definition, and Article 5 supplementary regulations, Division 6, height, lot, and yard regulations, deleting Section 48-1104, conditional uses permitted by special use permit as an obsolete section, and Division 9 antennas, clarifying regulations applying for all antenna types.
So we'll have just a very short staff report on this. These are technical updates or technical clarifications to the zoning code. They were discussed at work session. I won't kind of review all of them in detail, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have since their work session discussion.
I didn't see any changes since work session.
So yeah, I don't think, happy to walk through the changes that we covered previously. This is intended to be a best practice of us bringing, cleanup changes to you on a periodic basis.
I guess unless there are changes since work session, which I did not see any, I don't see the need for you to rehash it all.
I move to adopt TR 25-31.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Downs on the second. And call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes?
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Hiscod?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Third item, please.
So our city arborist, Mr. Charles Prince, is coming to the podium now to provide just a quick staff report on this. And this one, we do have a minor change to the ordinance. We'll discuss that. And since work session, I'll turn it over to Mr. Prince.
And I'll read the title.
Oh, well, let's do that first.
TR 25-30, resolution to initiate an amendment to the code of the City of Falls Church, Chapter 48 zoning to require that the site plan for any site located in a non-residential zoning district include the planting or replacement of trees on the site to the extent that, at 20 years, the minimum tree canopy on the site will be 10%.
Thank you very much. A very brief presentation to share with you. It's a little bit shorter than the one at our work session the other night. It's just going to cover the highlights for anybody that may want to recap. Just give me a moment, please. Good evening, Mayor Hardy and members of council. So just a brief history of our process to date. We're at the August 27th council meeting, obviously, and our last work session was on October 6th. So I just want to highlight the proposed changes. And considering of our Live Local resolution I just went through, we all know the benefits of trees that are on our screen here, but I'd just like to share also, according to Texas A&M Forest Service, tree commercial retail areas are more attractive to shop, rental rates are 7% higher, and shoppers are willing to pay about 10% more higher prices for products in shopping areas with trees. So here's just a brief snapshot from 2014 showing the more green areas. That's our mostly low to medium density residential, and our revitalization areas are mostly commercial. So you can see a little bit of a difference in kind of where our tree canopy is and is not. So our current regulations, as we have spoke about before, there is interior and perimeter parking lot regulations for parking lot facilities, but we are building less of those, so I think we should adapt to move forward. As well as we have buffer plantings between zoning districts, which I believe have been successful. I just want to touch on some changes, changes to our tree canopy coverage. We have many challenges for the urban forest. Land development is only one of them. We have many others like invasive pests. We've all seen the spotted lanternfly come in as our newest one. We have the urban heat island effect, among many others. Here's just a brief kind of overhead view of a before and after of one of our developments that go in. And for this one, the right picture on the kind of south side, the bottom row, that is a buffer planting. So we can see we do have some buffer planting, but overall it's mainly building. Here's just another example. This is just a minor site plan. Again, on the right side of the photos, on each of the respective photos, you can see we're losing a lot of mature tree canopy to some of these developments. And here's just a table that kind of shows where we are at with our on-site tree canopy. The green arrow kind of highlights what is on site for each of our recent developments. We can see we're at 11%, so we're not doing very bad, but we do have 5 that are below 10%. And I think if we bring all of those up to 10%, we'd gain 2 to 3 more percentage points on our average tree canopy. So here's just some changes since our last work session. I know residential cluster, townhome, and multifamily have come up. We've removed those from this code change amendment. And we'll look at all the R districts in the future. And that's mainly because the R districts aren't in this section of code that we're proposing to change. And again, my staff recommendation stays the same. Introduce minimum 10% tree canopy coverage in the city code for on-site trees within zoning districts that we don't currently have minimums on. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Do we have questions for Mr. Prince or comments? Ms. Downs?
Thank you very much, Mr. Prince. 2 quick questions. I found it interesting reading the staff report that surrounding localities continue to achieve canopy targets as high as 25% on commercial properties. So do you have any, I know that we, in the staff report says we need to sort of research and figure out how they're doing that. Do you have any off the top of your head ideas of how they're accomplishing this great feat of 25%?
Most of those high percentages are through special exceptions, and they don't waver on their tree canopy goals.
Okay. And then the other thing I thought was interesting too is this came up at a recent, I think it came up at a recent city council candidate forum about in terms of changes to the tree canopy. This is really important. I completely support it. Let me just put that out there. But, you know, it's interesting that I think and the mayor gave me this stat, if I have it right, I think 70% of our land is residential. Is that?
It's zoned for single family, yes.
Right, zoned for single family. So, you know, a lot of this is really super important. A lot of it is still, I think, the reduction of the tree canopy, it still comes down to a lot of the developers coming down and knocking down the older homes and clear cutting the properties and building big houses. And that would you say that's still a major contributor as well to the decrease of the tree canopy?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. The size of the new homes that are being built, they really interfere with retaining mature trees, especially when you factor in all the stormwater restrictions that we have, keeping water on site. Grading and putting in storm structures in the ground has had a negative effect on our tree canopy.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much. And of course, I'm very much in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Flynn?
I just wanted again to voice my support and also the support of the Urban Forestry Commission. I know that you've been the liaison there. The commission has been for years interested in pursuing this. So thank you for your work with the rest of the planning department and DPW to get this done this year, consistent with our strategic priorities. I don't view improving the business tree canopy and imposing a minimum that's essentially a floor that we've long had state code authority to impose as something that's mutually exclusive from, goals that we can achieve citywide. So the fact that we're doing this, yes, it doesn't change the fact that we're losing a lot of tree canopy in residential zones, but it gives us a tool to actually impose trees in business zones. And so instead of kind of having a compounding issue, it sets a baseline that we can have as an expectation in a negotiating position where for by right site plans, they'll now have to comply with the 10% tree canopy minimum. And for, projects that are coming in and saying that they should be granted special exceptions, hopefully we'll be showing that they can be doing more than they have been doing recently in some of the projects on site with respect to kind of green infrastructure. So I'm happy to support this. I'm happy that we've been able to move it forward, and thank you again for your work on it.
Thank you.
Ms. Hiscott.
In addition to the urban forestry, the ESC has talked about this at length and is complete support of 10% and would like us to legislate, push legislation that actually increases it higher than 10%, which I'd be in favor of as well. Like Ms. Downs mentioned, I'd be in favor of us getting an opportunity to have mandates in our residential areas as well in terms of tree canopy, eventually. And also, we briefly talked about this in our public, the city hall, our schools, where are we? Are we setting a really good example? What tree canopy do we have on the land that we as a government have control over? Maybe we're already at 30, I don't know, but it would be great to say, this is what we're doing as a city, this is how important it is to us, this is why we want our businesses and our residents to follow suit. So that's just a suggestion, but I'm in favor of this tonight.
Thank you.
Good suggestion. Any other comments? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move to adopt TR 25-30.
Is there a second?
Second.
Snyder on the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And since this is a resolution, we only need one vote. Is there an effective date for this? Like now? Does it say?
This is,
This is the initiating only. Two more. I guess we got to vote again after this.
There'll be 2 more votes on that.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's call number 4.
yes, we have a resolution to ratify the Judicial and Public Safety Services Agreement between Arlington County and the City of Falls Church, and that is TR 25-34.
Thank you. I'll speak for the city this evening. I'm Sally Gillette, the city attorney, and because these services fall within the courts largely in the prosecutor's office and criminal justice, the contract has landed in my office for tracking and management over time. So I'll be presenting it to you tonight. The resolution is to ratify an agreement that was entered into effective July 10th, 2024. It was entered into administratively, and we are seeking council's approval at this point and going forward for any actions taken regarding to this contract. If council does nothing, this contract will remain valid through the use of automatic renewals through July of 2034. But if council decides that there are issues with the services under this agreement, it does have a provision in the agreement to notify Arlington County of that with 120 days prior written notice to make any kind of amendments. So with that, what we're seeking tonight is a ratification of this contract through an affirmative vote of council, and there's a lot of detail in the staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Gillette? Okay, is there a motion?
Do you have a question?
I didn't have a question, but I was just going to thank Ms. Gillette and the corresponding departments, because I know how many contracts you likely had to work through and digest and kind of look at the history of these and what it was that the city was doing and needed to do and accomplish under the contract. So thank you for this and kind of bringing, for your diligent review of it. Thanks.
Thank you. It was definitely, I will say, a group effort. There are a lot of departments that this contract touches, and I am not the keeper of their data. In fact, the Department of Housing, the Department of the Police, the City Manager's Office, they all track this data, and so I was more or less a collator. But thank you, I appreciate it, and I'll pass your words along.
I move to adopt TR 25-34.
Second.
Ms. Hiscott on the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, council.
Okay, our second item with Arlington County.
Yes, we have TR 25-35, resolution to approve a fire and emergency medical services agreement between Arlington County and the City of Falls Church.
So I'll handle the staff report for this one. The city has for many decades provided fire and EMS services, emergency medical services, by contract with Arlington County. This agreement is a tripartite agreement with the volunteers and with Arlington County. The basic structure is the volunteers own a portion of the land where the Falls Church Station exists. It's really kind of the parking lot in the front. The city owns the land on which the station sits and paid for the bonds to build the Falls Church Fire Station back in 2001. The agreement lays out that the cost to staff the station is split 50-50 between the city and the county. The county pays for all the equipment that the firefighters and the EMS staff use. The city buys the apparatus, which is one ladder truck, one engine, and one medic unit. And then the county staffs that apparatus to make sure it has all the equipment needed for the critical life safety work that they do. One of the main changes in this agreement, this change was requested by Arlington County, that their county-wide staffing model has increased the staffing levels at the Falls Church Station from 33 to 39. We've also had increases in the cost of apparatus. And then one last change is the city currently keeps the full balance of ambulance fees that are paid when an ambulance transports someone to the hospital. And under the new agreement, the city will keep the ambulance fees up to the FY26 amount, and then any increase in ambulance fees that happen in the future, the county will get. So we sort of have a new cap on ambulance fees that will be retained by the city. Overall, in FY25, our costs for fire services were about $3.1 million, and under these changes, the cost will be just under $3.8 million. That increase of $656,000 per year, this is going to be an annual operating cost, was one of the big lifts that we had to make in the adoption of the current year's budget that we're operating this year, and appreciate the council's working with staff and with Arlington County to provide that funding in this year's budget. So it is paid for, and it is an increase. And that's a quick summary of the agreement. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Questions or comments? Ms. Downs?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shields. So in reading the staff report and just following up on exactly what you just said about the $657,000 increase, the language in the staff report says with further increases in FY27 and beyond, reflecting a higher cap on overtime costs billable to the city. So I guess my question is, are we looking at every year there could be an increase in this amount?
So there's certainly, I think it's reasonable to expect there will be an increase every year. I think that will be because generally driven by personnel costs. Okay. And so as the firefighters and the EMS staff have raises, the city will be paying for its share of those raises.
Okay.
And then in addition, as you just noted, currently there's a 7% cap on overtime exposure that the city pays. That's 7% of total payroll at Station 6, and that will go to 10% as the cap. If it's below that, that's fine, but we're capped at 10%.
Okay. So I guess my question is, from one year to the next, let's say, we have a higher overtime the one year, the next year the overtime isn't as high. Does the price then come down or not?
So let's say, and this has been the case, I think the county has had staffing challenges just like everybody has. Right. And so when you have a lot of vacancies, you have higher overtime costs. And so I think the county has been concerned. They've been running at sometimes 15 to 20% of payroll. Overtime's been in addition to by that percentage amount. So this 10% cap, I think, is still below the actuals that the county has been paying at least over the last 2 years.
Okay. Okay.
So that was a point of negotiation We do think that it's appropriate for there to be a cap because the city can't control it.
Right.
And so we didn't want it to be sort of a carte blanche.
Right. Well, and also, obviously, we are a little city, and you know, that, as you said, it's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
So it can't go unchecked, for sure. Okay. But you as our city manager feel comfortable with this? I mean, I know it's already in the budget and all that, but.
I do. It was a rigorous discussion. And
Right,
a very
I remember that,
respectful
right.
one because we know how important these services are. But I think the Chief Fard and Melissa Ryman and myself, we were sort of the three working on this agreement, and I think we worked very hard to make sure that there's a fair agreement for the taxpayers of the City of Falls Church.
Great. Thank you for your due diligence and also your staff. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Snyder?
Sure. So a lot of the increased staffing costs come from the additional 4 firefighters per engine. Is that right? Rather than 3. My question is, when you sort out all these different cost factors and you sort of add them together, are we roughly paying the same amount that Arlington County is for fire protection for Arlington and the City of Falls Church? And then does that percentage roughly equate to the percentage of calls that are in the City of Falls Church?
So the calls that are the call box for the Falls Church Station is generally year in, year out about 50-50 in terms of response to the county versus response in the city. And that metric includes the mutual aid where Fairfax County responds. That's counted as an Arlington County response because it's being done under the Arlington County's mutual aid agreement. In terms of a cost per capita, the city's cost is similar to Arlington County's cost. And that is a metric that we looked at as we kind of went through these discussions.
So that's an interesting way to calculate. So even though Arlington County didn't respond, has no expenses because Fairfax County responded as part of a mutual aid agreement, that Arlington County gets to count that as an Arlington County response. That's an interesting way to calculate things. Anyway, it sounds like you're on it and urge you to stay on it. Thanks.
And only just to say in response to that, I think from the county's perspective, they do mutual aid in Fairfax County. They respond in McLean. They respond in the county. So I think the county views it as a wash, and therefore it's sort of we treat it as a wash in the city as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Other questions or comments? Okay. As I mentioned during a work session, my understanding is that the fire department is going through their collective bargaining agreement renegotiation in Arlington. It's probably too early, but do we have a sense? Well, I know there's a cap on overtime. Do we have a sense of what their 3-year agreement might be so that we can start anticipating what the staffing costs?
I don't at this point, no.
Okay. But we could probably be prepared for an increase that's probably out of our control.
The original question, I think we will need to anticipate there will be increases to this contract over time.
Okay. Is there?
Is Falls Church involved in those negotiations at all?
No.
Just like the school one. At least we're not. Okay, is there a motion?
I move to approve TR 25-35.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Connolly on the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Sean Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Okay, let's call item 6.
Yes,
Budget
we
amendment.
have on first reading TO 25-19, ordinance to amend ordinance 2090 regarding the budget of expenditures and revenues and appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2026 general fund and the capital improvement program funds.
And our interim finance director, Melissa Ryman, is here to walk us through this. We do have some changes relative to work session relating to consensus that was reached at work session. Those are highlighted in gray, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Ryman for the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. I'm presenting the Budget Amendment Ordinance TO-19. This amendment will increase the appropriation for the general fund by $2,012,666 and the Capital Improvements Program Fund by $133,197. And they will be funded mostly from fiscal year 2025 surplus, with $548,000 going to new uses, $779,000 for carry forwards, $835,000 for capital reserves, and $274,000 going to permit fees. This amendment will also adjust the budget for the solid waste fee and the related reduction to our real estate taxes. The amendment also reflects the transfer of appropriation for the business analyst position from the Department of Finance to the Information Technology Services within the Department of Executive Management. As Mr. Shields mentioned earlier, since the October 20 work session, we have added a couple of things. One is for $76,700 for the ADA transition high priority items that were identified during that work session. And the second one is a $60,000 transfer to the EDA using accumulated rent from the 208 Gibson Street property, which will be used for rehabilitation and acquisition of Virginia Village units in the future. There's a lot more detail in the staff report, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryman. Questions or comments? Ms. Downs.
Thank you so much. This is more of a comment, I guess, for Mr. Shields. I know that it was the mayor's suggestion that we put some of our money towards our parks with our ADA accessibility, and which I completely support. But I would love us to, because we did a community survey about the ADA, input from our community. So I'd love us in Falls Church Focus to highlight this, that this is something that, we heard from the community, and, we did an ADA, study, and this is, the council has decided to put this money towards that. I think it's nice when we highlight things that we're, really trying to listen to community feedback.
Ms. Flynn.
So thank you again for your work on this. At the work session, I raised just questions about the $50,000 going towards the 250th anniversary celebration. And while I, fully support the committee doing work in this area and the city taking on celebrations, I still do have concerns that we're spending $50,000 or allocating $50,000 toward this in the midst of sort of the economic period that we're in. And so I just wanted to share that I've continued misgivings about it, and I would feel far more comfortable with a much lower number as a initial step. And then to the extent we see whether the committee actually needs additional funding for programming, or if with community feedback, we are trying to take up a community-wide event or something coming together on, July 4th, then culminating, July 2026, that we can have that conversation. But I was a little bit concerned, with it's important for planning purposes that the committee kind of know the funding amount, because I thought coming out of our conversation that, there was by no means full support in saying go ahead and come up with a budget that spends $50,000.
Mr. Snyder.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. As a liaison to the 250 committee, let me address that. First of all, to call the request for money a celebration, I think is absolutely wrong. what the major thrust of this opportunity will be to create spaces for our citizens to talk about what they're seeing and feeling about their rights today and the preservation of that for the foreseeable future or the unforeseeable future. In addition, there will be a series of interviews addressing issues that are related to the founding of the country, but issues which exist today. I would add as well that as I go door to door, I think there's a strong appetite among our citizens to speak to dramatic negative changes that occurred in our country and in our government in the last few months. I'm speaking, for example, to former employees of USAID who literally worked around the world to benefit children and to otherwise save people's lives, and yet the agency that they worked so hard for was terminated. And the idea is to give our citizens in our community an opportunity to discuss critical issues that hopefully in the future people can learn from and otherwise be educated in. Now, I don't know what the number for that effort is. If it's reduced to 25,000 and it costs more, I may come back. But this idea of a celebration, it's not really a celebration. What it is a discussion for the future about what things like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution mean to people today and what's occurring today so that they can learn from that in the future. So that's certainly how I envision more of the effort. And I see Jim Coyne is here, who chairs that group. I don't know if he wanted to add anything else, but I know he's been engaged in some of the advanced planning. But this idea of a birthday cake paid for with citizens' money, it ain't going to happen. If there's a birthday cake, I'm going to pay for it out of my own money, frankly. So I don't know, Madam Mayor, do you want to invite Jim? Jim, do you want to make a comment on this?
Sure, you're welcome to, Mr. Coyle.
Try to be short. Thank you, Aaron, for that question. We're in kind of a chicken and an egg situation right now. We're coming close to making some decisions about things we want to do, but other things depend on timing and commitments from others and so forth. So just to give you an example, we have 3 stacks of activities that we're planning. Mr. Snyder just referred to one. We're going to have videos once a month starting in January all the way through the year. We don't know exactly what that's going to cost at this point. We're working with CCTV and with the library folks to get a handle on that. But we've really got some exciting videos we want to do, both from an ethnic point of view, students from the high school speaking about democracy, a whole range of things. We're really excited. At our next meeting, which is coming up, we hope to approve the 12 videos. And then we have some other videos that have come to our attention that we can get a hold of and also put those online about democracy. So that's one piece. The other piece, we're working with the community organizations, and we're already got commitments from close to a dozen to really coordinate with us and put on their own events during the course of 26 that will celebrate democracy from their particular point of view. Like the veterans groups are very excited about participating and having something for us. And then the third set, which some of the money comes in, is a series of community-oriented events to give it a little bit of a community jazz, community participation. One of the fun things we're going to do is soapbox conversations. And I even have the high school asking me if we can come up and do them in the lunch times at the high school so the students can talk about democracy and what's important to them going forward. We got a whole series of things that fall into community activities. Fort Taylor, we really want to come up with something significant for Fort Taylor because that's been such a historical place for us. We got some colonial era things we're focusing on to see how we can bring those to the front. So we got a whole mix of things that the committee has been working very hard on. And some are almost certain, and others, which it affects the budget because we don't know exactly if we're going to get those done or not.
And I appreciate that. I take those comments. I take Mr. Snyder's comments. I heard from the community about this when I saw the number. I had a reaction to the number, so I wanted to ask about the number. And I, as much as anyone, right, agree that we need to do things to bring the community together. We need to do things to bring the country together. We need to do things to address rule of law issues and, constitutional issues and constitutional protections and sort of separation of powers issues and, civic education that has gotten us to, a critical point in sort of American democracy generally. But I just want, the city and the committee to just to internalize, sort of the costs at this point in time and what you can do and what you need, and just to have a better sense of sort of the ask overall.
Right. The one thing you just made me think of is too, this is in the Parks and Recreation budget, and our staff person has been coordinating with them. So some of the money that's in the 50,000 may actually go towards an event through the Parks and Recreation Department. So our commitment to you is we're not going to spend any money foolishly, and whatever doesn't get spent will come back to you for further allocation.
No, and I appreciate that. And, we're talking about the budget, the budget essentially between January and June, or January and July, if you're talking about all of 2026. And so, anyway,
we're going to carry things all the way through the year, but we'll be concentrating in the first 7 months, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess if I could just chime in on this. I mean, the conversation at the beginning of the meeting is such a stark contrast, right? So we started the meeting talking about food insecurity, and we are putting in 20,000 to bolster up 40,000 total. And so when we're talking about people literally going hungry, potentially starting in 4 days, contrasted with the 250 anniversary recognition, even if we don't call it celebration, I have a really hard time with that personally, as much as I love the creativity and how you're involving the community. So I share some of that concern that I would personally would love to see us be more judicious and say that, hey, we can revisit the number come mid-year again, just because I guess of the economic uncertainty and I think what the hardships that many of our residents are facing, I'd have a hard time being okay with this initial appropriation.
Yeah. We defer to you, obviously, so.
Here comes.
I add to that as well. I'm in agreement with Aaron and Letty's comments. In light of when you're a resident and you are observing, like, what are they most engaged in? They're engaged in events and support, right? So when you see 40,000 for all of our support for food, for housing, for everything, which is doubled from what we did almost doubled from what we did last year. And then we may spend $50,000 on what is incredibly important. But are there ways we can do it that, using our high school students, using these nonprofit resources, using the whole committee's creativity, ingenuity, and ability to bring these things to discussions? I think we could have amazing things happen that, with all that forethought, that might not cost, $10,000 in a given month. Conversely, I was already thinking in our first discussion about, what we're putting into our capital reserves, which is important as well. But I still just have that feeling in the back of my mind that what we're setting aside right now, what we're budgeting for food and for assistance is just not going to be enough. And I have deep concerns. Like, that's the overarching concern of mine when I'm looking at this budget and this budget amendment. So I don't necessarily need to assign that now, but there just needs to be some buffer in our minds about what we might be spending either surplus or going back to the well for. And that's really my focus, not to negate any of the work that's being done, but just the continual focus on that. And they go hand in hand, right? Like, if we're talking about democracy and we're talking about how the federal government works and we're talking about the role of federal government in supporting its citizens, I mean, I think these things can go hand in hand, and it could be a discussion about how do we bring back SNAP? How do we bring back WIC? How do we fund these things? How do we, make that go back to 250 years ago? And this is something important to our founding members. But I don't need to go on, but that's just elaborating why I've been thinking the same thing.
Thoughts? Ms. Underhill?
I strongly support these types of community events and specifically events that bring people together. I think where I stand on all of this is I would just like to see, here are the things that we're planning and here's how much it'll cost. And then we put the number to that. And so we give the money according to the need rather than giving an amount of money up front. And I think we'd all be open to funding some of these wonderful videos and events and community gatherings. But it would just feel a lot better if we had more specifics for what the money was going towards rather than just sort of throwing a lump sum without knowing.
Our plan is to come to you all in early December with our plan as complete as it can be. There'll still be things that won't be completely decided because it's a moving target with a lot of the community groups and things of that sort. But our goal is to come and present a whole plan to you in early December.
And I would understand if there needs to be some buffer or some, contingency amount. But yeah, it would be helpful to see the plan before we just give a blanket amount. Because, I guess to your point, Mr. Coyle, we don't necessarily want to set an amount and then have people say, oh, well, let's spend, all $50,000. Let's see what the needs are and then target that amount.
I guess my question would be if we wait till December and we have a better idea of some of the things that will cost funds, will you be able to make a decision where we'll be able to use the money for some of the activities that we really want to get moving on? That's where I would see that. I don't know what the timing would be.
Do we normally have another budget amendment after December?
We often have one in January, if needed. So on the emergency assistance, where the $40,000 comes from is we spent $10,000 in emergency assistance for the first 3 months of the year. So we just did the math and we said $40,000. We are worried about that because that's before any of these sort of deeper cliffs that we've kind of hit in the month of October and are going to be confronting in November. So I believe in January we're going to be asking for more for emergency assistance. But we thought the $40,000, as we discussed in work session, was a reasonable number based on the data that we have, for the first quarter. So January would be another time to revisit these, both of these questions.
So are you proposing that we not put 50,000 in the anniversary and move it, or not put it in there at all and wait till January?
No, I think my proposal would be to lower the initial allocation from $50,000 to something more moderate. And then the question is, what is left of, let's say, if it goes from 50 down to 25 as an initial matter, what do we do with the 25? Do we have another use for the 25? Do we potentially have that 25 an additional emergency assistance? Do we have that 25 available to the extent that next month we need to be helping, whether it's the local organizations or sort of regionally contributing to sort of food assistance programs that is potentially there in addition to whatever, direct HHS assistance may be coming through, kind of emergency assistance specified applications. So I don't know the easiest way. You have your budget, like all the numbers are done in a certain way. If it's easier to work to say, what do we want to do with this 50,000? If in my view right now, it seems too high an initial allocation, but we do have concerns that maybe the assistance number isn't as high as it needs to be on the social services front.
So what I would propose, because I hear what you're saying, rather than have to re-budget on the fly, we are putting $835,000 into capital reserves. That is above and beyond what we need to put into capital reserves, right? So we do have that nice pot of money that we can move around as needed at the time. So I would really propose that we leave that $50,000 in there for the 250th anniversary and leave the money that we put in there for assistance and just be prepared for what comes next. Because there is more that comes next, but we do have that money in there. Plus, we have the reserve that we set aside with the budget, correct?
Yes.
So, and how much is in that? $500,000?
716.
It's $116,000 for contingency expenditures.
Okay.
And then, forgive me, about $500,000 for revenue shortfalls.
So those are still existing pots of money where we can pull in an emergency. So my proposal is just to leave it as is, being aware of what we do have for future needs that will come up quickly.
I guess I want to bridge the comments I heard from Aaron and Debbie, myself, with what Justine said as well, which is we're happy to fund this when we have more specific requests. So could we be okay with, say, 25 allocation now? We have a December conversation where you say, here's actually what our needs are. We can or we can't meet with the 25. And if you have a request for more, the world will probably be pretty different by December. We'll have a better sense of what our social safety needs are. And we're happy to have a discussion again in that December budget amendment.
Sounds reasonable to me.
How do people feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm conflicted because, Mr. Quill, you and your colleagues have done such a great job on this, and I've talked to a couple. I agree with Ms. Underhill's comments about the importance of all that you're doing, and if there's ever a time that we all need this sort of positivity, it's now. I will say I was hoping for a little bit more of a detailed, because I know you had asked about it last time, so I was anticipating we would have sort of like a budget, with highlight, with more specific, this would cost this and that, and itemize is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I'm conflicted, and I did tell one of your committee members I would support the 50,000 because I do feel very strongly about it. But that was also, I didn't realize at the time that we didn't really have much outlined in terms of what you need that money specifically for. So
I hope by December we'll have.
no, I completely. So I mean, that might be, maybe that's the compromise, Ms. Connolly, is we go half now with committing to you all that you come back to us in December. And if you all really need it and, we think it's, the bottom hasn't fallen out in terms of the economy and all that, that we would fund the rest of it.
I mean, in a worst case scenario, we're still going to deliver a program.
Right,
Okay?
right.
There's no doubt about that.
Right.
So.
And sometimes, when we do this sometimes at the school board too, we sort of like scenarios, A, B, and C. So even if maybe in December you come to us and say, this is kind of the bare bones, but we could really this is really the awesome, but it's going to cost us much money and give us some kind of options.
Okay.
I would support the full, if you really would need that amount, I would support it. Again, not knowing, in a couple months, who knows where we'll be as right. A locality and the money piece of it all. But again, this is, 250 years, so this is pretty important, and so I do support that. So maybe that's a good compromise.
Okay, thank you all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle.
We put a pin earlier in the discussion about the food pantries. I think we did hear from, is it Food for Others and maybe the Capital Area Food Bank potentially needing extra support from Falls Church. Do we have a rough dollar amount?
I don't think we do have a rough dollar amount. I think what we got from the one of our food distribution partners is numbers in terms of what they're encountering, but they did not make a financial request. Ms. Jones, is that, do you want to speak to the information we got late in the evening?
I think you're muted.
So, Dana, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. If we got Deb Haynes from the Executive Director of Food for Others put together something for us that had numbers, and she estimated that they might need somewhere between 25,000 to 50,000, but that's really rough, and that's just based on the programs that they do for the city. She had talked to Mary Beth about support for the schools, and then they also come to the fields and do on-site. And then they also have a referral program where we send residents, that's where we send the majority of residents is to them. And so she felt like to do all three of those things, that it might be between 25,000 and 50,000, but that's very rough, and I just got that around like 6 o'clock
Thank you,
tonight.
Dana. And just for context, how much financial support do we give them on an annual basis, if any?
None. I mean, we have a contract with Fairfax County, and they get funding from Fairfax County, but they have not come in for community services funds or any of that type of thing, but they support city residents.
I guess I'm just trying to gauge, like, is this 2x of what, the needs are? Like, based on what we send through Fairfax County, is this double what we normally would do allocated for food support, or 20% more? Like, I'm just trying to get a sense of the scale of this need.
Well, I mean, I would say that the need is going to be higher now. I mean, Fairfax is also trying to deal with their own, support needs as well. So they are a part of the contract, but, we're kind of in a special situation right now. So I see that what she's saying, and also schools has reached out to them for specific support to kind of meet the need of the backpack program and the needs that the schools can't meet anymore. So that's something additional that they wouldn't normally do. So it seems reasonable to me.
Can I make, I don't know, I guess my suggestion might be to move 25, I mean, we're talking about first reading, right? So we're talking about initial guidance, right? And we can always receive more comment on this, and we can see sort of where we are come November 1st and whether or not how the emergency, state of emergency has been implemented, or how funding streams are open or not open, whether the pass-through is actually getting to people who have EBT cards and need to be able to buy groceries. And so I guess my suggestion, and I can make a motion on this, would be to take $25,000 out of the 250th anniversary to move it into the additional emergency financial assistance line item, to view that line item as not simply going to direct HHS applications, but potential use for assistance that the regional food banks that our residents are using and that are coming into the city to help deliver food to our residents from the needs that they're saying, so that the additional emergency financial assistance would be $45,000 and the 250th anniversary would be at $25,000 for purposes of first reading.
Thoughts on that?
I'd be in support of that. And I also just wanted to mention for the school support, Mary Beth has more details now than I do, but the Falls Church Education Foundation's Family Assistance Fund has predominantly gone to grocery support for students currently. And I know that the Education Foundation Board is discussing additional ways to support financially. So those who've contributed to that know that they're also contributing to feeding our community.
That's great. Other thoughts on Ms. Flynn's amendment to the budget amendment? Yes, Mr. Snyder.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. However the vote comes out, I do appreciate that this has given us an opportunity to clarify what the objectives are and what the current thinking is. This will be a substantive community-wide discussion about where we've been, where we are, and where we need to be in the future with regard to issues raised in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So it did give, however this comes out, one way or the other, it has given us an opportunity to clarify where this is going. Thank you.
Okay, thoughts on the rest of the budget amendment or Ms. Flynn's specific proposal to take 25 from the 250 anniversary and put it into additional emergency financial assistance with the expectation it might go to our food pantries? Okay. Other thoughts on the rest of the budget amendment? I guess I had two questions. In light of the public comment we heard about PV on the Aurora House versus the community center, what are staff's thoughts on that? I guess we hadn't heard an update that we can't put solar panels on Aurora House. So
I don't know that we have that answer. So I know that the staff is looking at it. And I know they're also looking at the community center as an option, but I don't have any specific budget asks for you all at this stage.
I think in that $116,000 we were talking about, maybe there's some leeway there if the row house needs to be further supported so we can put the solar panels on there. I do think, we've been talking about that. We've budgeted for that, so it would be nice to know what the additional cost to make sure it actually happens, because I do think, I can only imagine X fold would cost for the community center. So any information we can get on what it costs to do at Aurora House would be helpful, because I'm absolutely in support of that.
I guess for now, we're assuming that it's continuing until we hear from you otherwise, that either you need more money or there's an issue.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, and my second comment has to do with the Vietnamese Outreach Coordinator, the pilot program. So I appreciated the extra detail provided, I guess on lines 101 through 108, kind of like the 250 celebration. The ask I would have is during this pilot process, I'm always a little anxious about just general liaison roles, because it's really hard to measure the impact of whether that role is important or not. And so I would encourage us to, as we continue with another 6 months of the pilot, to actually see specific outcomes. So whether it's number of new businesses we engaged, or getting new senior center program attendees, or number of businesses we helped, I think we just need to get more specific on what the value of that role is beyond just being a general all-purpose liaison. And so I would encourage us to hold ourselves to that bar, because I assume in 6 months we will decide whether this should be an ongoing FTE. And the bar should be pretty high for that in light of where we are with the environment.
I completely agree, and that was the other thing that was in the back of my mind. If we're spending on, how we distribute this surplus equitably and focus on the community needs it most. So, but I do think that if that community needs support on food, on housing, on whatever, that this liaison will serve dual purposes for the businesses, but also to ensure that we get the message to, we know where some of the communities live, are concentrated, and how helpful this person would be in making sure that those people get fed and get any tax breaks or anything else they need. So I think they tie together, but I agree with you on having data on what that entails and demonstrating why we're spending tax dollars on it.
Okay. Do we have a motion then on first reading for the budget amendment?
Reference the change?
Yeah.
Yeah, so should I make the motion the way that I semi-teed up the motion? Or I know that I saw the city manager and the city attorney consulting, so.
As a matter of mechanics, we can take a motion like that, and then when you see it at second reading, all the numbers are going to add up correctly, but we can make any amendments that you all want to make, we can then carry them forward to second reading.
So I'm going to make a motion, move to grant first reading to TO 25-19, schedule a public hearing and second reading for November 10th, 2025, and advertise the same according to law, with the modification that instead of having $50,000 allocated to the line item USA 250th anniversary, that number is reflected to be $25,000, and that for the line item additional emergency financial assistance, that the $20,000 be raised by $25,000 for a total of $45,000.
Second.
Hiscott on the second. Call roll, please. Sorry, it was Hiscott on the second. Call roll, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Shantz Hiscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yeah.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you to council and staff for being flexible during this. I imagine this is the environment we're going to be in as we go through budget season as well. So, okay, we have consent left, I think. Does anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda? We've got appointments and then all the items that we looked at work session last week. Otherwise, I'll take a motion.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. Flynn on the second. Call roll.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Downs?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Sean Siscott?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any business not on the agenda? Okay, how about standing regional or liaison reports? I had one item from the Housing Commission last week. I think they're scheduled to deliver their annual report on November 24th, but they're already joining us at the 11/17 meeting the week before. So it seems difficult for that board to have to come 2 meetings back to back, so that they're meeting like 3 times a month then, which seems like a big ask for them. Is it possible for us to figure out how to combine that? It's a scheduling question on behalf of the Housing Commission. So I said they are scheduled to deliver their annual report on 11/24, but they're already coming to a joint work session with us on 11/17, literally the week before. And so we're essentially asking this board to meet 3 times during the month of November, their regular meeting and then twice with us.
Yeah, we did encourage them to come to a regular meeting because that's the standard place for an annual report, and I didn't know there was a problem, but, I mean, you can schedule them whenever you'd like to.
I guess it would.
Yeah, so I think we can follow up with them. Was the idea then they would do their annual report at the work session?
I mean, I'd be fine with that, given we're probably all talking about housing in the joint work session anyway, unless we really want to talk 2 weeks back to back. Do y'all have a preference?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess let's be considerate of their schedules, and if they can come one time, that's fine
Okay,
with us.
we'll follow up with the chair and staff on that.
Great, thank you. Other committees or boards and commission reports? Council member comments?
I'll just say that as the liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, they hosted a city council candidate forum last week at Paragon Movie Theater. So it was actually in the movie theater. And so it was a great event and, nice way to show off our local movie theater. So I hope it's not a reflection of the candidates, but being in that movie theater is a little bit dark, and those chairs are like lazy boy chairs. We saw a couple audience members nodding off, but I don't think it was a reflection of how interesting we were, right? But I think the chamber did a nice job highlighting, they tried to move things around, so this was a creative way to highlight the movie theater, and they did a nice job.
Okay. I guess we're ready to move on to minutes then. We've got 2 sets. Does anyone want to comment or move to adopt them?
I'll move to adopt the March 24th, 2025 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. March 24th adopted.
I'll also move to adopt the April 28th, 2025 minutes.
I'll also second.
Scott on the second for both of them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are also adopted.
Thank you.
Okay, final comments. We were 10 minutes to 10 o'clock. Okay, I will consider us adjourned then. Good night, all.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.